Hello, and welcome to the Obscure Art Gallery. We pride ourselves on having one of the world's largest collections of art pieces that you've probably never heard of. It really makes for a great viewing because you're going to find some pieces here that you really won't find in any other gallery in the world. Now, we are having a special exhibit this week. A few pieces with a little bit of a science theme to them, and you can either just mosey on through on your own, or I'm currently available if you would like a private tour. You'd be interested in a private tour? Oh no, there is no charge for that. The entire gallery is free. You can come and go as you please. If you want to purchase works, of course, you will have to pay for those, but any amount of looking is free, so you'd like to go ahead with the guided tour in that case? Okay, well, why don't we just head down the hall and we can go check out that wonderful new exhibit that we have, okay? We actually do new exhibits every month, and this is our featured exhibit for this month. So, alright, so we're going to start with this intriguing piece. This one is titled Stormtrooper in Bath, and as you can see, it's an image of a stormtrooper who's just having a nice soak after a hard day of work. One of the really nice things about this piece is that it shows us the side of stormtroopers that we don't often get to see. Too often they're running down the halls, firing their laser blasters, or chasing rebels, what have you, and this just kind of shows the more everyday side of the stormtrooper life, something we can all kind of relate to, you know, no matter what you do for a living, whether it's guarding the Death Star or being the local waiter at a restaurant. Work can always get a little hectic no matter what it is, and you know, everyone just needs to relax and have a good soak in a nice warm bath once in a while. So it's nice that we're allowed to see that in this painting. And another thing that I'd like to draw your attention to is the level of detail that the artist put into this painting. Like you can see over there in the back is the oversized urinal. That was a very clever addition because, of course, as we all know, stormtroopers are notorious for their bad aim, so the extra large urinal was actually a very thoughtful thing to put into this bathroom, make it very easy for the stormtrooper. And again, it's just a very relatable, very average, everyday scene from a stormtrooper's, you know, not so calm life. This is one of those calm moments in the stormtrooper's life. So why don't you go ahead and give that a few minutes of viewing, and then we'll mosey on down the hall to the next painting in the exhibit, okay? Now, this next one is a very interesting piece. We kind of call it a thinking piece because you do have to think about it for a moment. This one is titled Space Cowboy, and I'll let you mull that over for just a moment. Yeah, it's just kind of a play on the words. Usually, you know, the term space cowboy kind of elicits a, you know, Wild West in the stars kind of feeling, sort of a Cad Bane feeling, if you will, but in this case, it's actually a very literal interpretation of the space cowboy. In fact, it's actually spelled Space comma, cow, comma, boy. So it's not space cowboy, it's space cow boy. And so this painting is the very literal interpretation of that. You've got the space, all the stars and the vast expanse of the heavens, and then you've got the cow and the boy as more of the focal point, the subjects of the painting. And there's a little bit of commentary on the human experience in this painting. One of the things that I love about it is that nothing in this painting is very obvious at first, First off, you have to figure out the space cowboy, and then there's also the kind of hidden commentary in it, which is kind of showing, how the universe is so vast and seemingly never-ending. But then, of course, you have the, by comparison, short lives of the cow and the boy. And, however, even though the universe may seem like the far more important thing, because a cow and a boy are such tiny little things in such a vast universe, the artist has chosen to make them the focal point to remind the viewers of just how important they are. The vast expanse of space is really the background of the image. And the boy and the cow, despite being so small by universal terms, actually take up a huge amount of the canvas, reminding us what a big part of the universe, they really are, how important they are in this wide universe. Even being so small comparatively, they're extremely important in the grand scheme of things. So, again, a very thought-provoking piece, and one that we are absolutely delighted to be displaying in this month's featured exhibit. So I'll let you just look at that one for a few moments, and we'll move on down the line. Okay, now this piece, it's a little bit gory at first glance, but there is a reason for that, of course. This is called Renaissance Evil, and it's basically a conversation about how there is no starting date for zombies, even though they generally tend to be creatures of more modern creation, usually. This is showing that there's a group of zombies in the Renaissance era, of course, clearly identifiable by the tattered clothing being of the Renaissance era. And given the fact that there were so many plagues in the era, and medical treatment not being then what it is now, who is to say that a zombie outbreak could not have occurred just as easily during that time as it could now? And the artist actually put in some really nice details that you can find if you're looking for them. Like there's the little umbrella in the background, which looks like just, simple little carnival umbrella until you stare at it and realize it's actually the symbol for Umbrella Corp. I like the way that the artist has incorporated it into the Renaissance era theme. And then, of course, we do have a renaissanced version of Alice, and she's here with some weapons of the day. You're not going to see her with, modern guns or anything like that to go hunt the zombies in this painting. She's using the tools of the trade that would have been available to someone during that era. The artist who painted this was a huge fan of the Renaissance era. Some of her biggest heroes were Da Vinci and Michelangelo, so it was very important for her to kind of incorporate that era into this zombie painting to kind of remind everyone that that wheel of time kind of just keeps on spinning. So again, the details that are in this work are just wonderful, and we're so happy to have this in our collection for now. So go ahead and let yourself view that for a few minutes, and when you're ready, we'll move on to the next piece. Now, this chaotic image is titled Cruise Gone Wrong, and essentially everything that could possibly be going wrong on this cruise is happening all at once. Obviously the ship's on fire, there's a terrible storm with lightning overhead, there's a whirlpool that's forming in the ocean, and of course there's all these tentacles from this. It's either a giant squid or a kraken, something along those lines, just got hold of that ship, pulling it down under the water. And, it looks pretty bleak, pretty hopeless. And there's, of course, the symbology of the eclipse above the scene as it's happening, just kind of signifying even more that, it's a very dark time in this image that's being portrayed. One of the interesting things about the creation of this painting is that the artist was actually going through a very serious depression when this painting was created. So this was kind of the artist's way of channeling all those dark feelings and that depression, kind of getting it up and out of their body and onto the canvas. And it actually helped pull them out of that bout of depression, just being able to describe what they felt inside, the darkness, the hopelessness, the bleakness, just, complete and utter despair. So they just painted that on the canvas, everything that they felt inside. And obviously it's painted in symbolic form. They didn't actually feel like a cruise ship, but, that was just the symbolic vehicle that they chose to convey the darkness and hopelessness that they were feeling. And, the whirlpool especially, it's kind of like if the kraken doesn't get it, then the whirlpool will, and there's no way out for the ship is kind of the way the artist was feeling at the time. So this is what they painted to just express those feelings. And even though the scene is very dark, being able to paint this did allow them to pull themselves out of that depression. So that is the power of art. Art has the power to save people and change the world. So we are very lucky to be able to experience it. So go ahead and enjoy this one for another minute or two, and we'll just keep right on moving, all right? Now, this piece is called Dragonflies, and it's by the same artist as Space Cowboy, and I think you can understand why and where this is going. Yes, exactly. It's another very literal translation of the word. It's one of the great things about this artist is that they really kind of make you think with their work, You can't just look at a picture and hear the title is Dragonflies and expect to see the insect dragonflies. This is the literal interpretation, the dragon and the flies kind of buzzing around it, as flies do. And so it causes you to look at things in a different way. What you would normally expect is not what you're getting, and it's not incorrect, because this is, of course, literally dragon flies, but it's not what you expect. It's not the dragonflies that flutter around the pond, the little insects, dragonflies. And much like the Space Cowboy, the dragon and the flies are the focal point. The background is, while important, not the focal point of the image. It's allowed to kind of fade into the background and be, well, a background. and the dragon and the flies are the main focus of the image. We don't exactly know what the flies are doing there. They could be just flitting around, bothering the dragon, kind of the way they do with cows in a field, or it could be that the dragon has just finished a meal and the flies are kind of smelling that on its breath and looking to see if they can get a little piece of it themselves. We don't really know, and that's part of the artist technique, is to leave you wondering and questioning and seeing things in a new perspective, and I think she's certainly achieved that with this image. So again, we are delighted to have all of her works in our collection. So go ahead and take this in for a moment and we'll head on to the next piece. Now, this piece is called The Hazards of Time Travel, and at first glance it's quite obvious that it is a Terminator being eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. So that's obviously what we're seeing at face value, but if you think about the painting for a few moments, then you begin to realize that Skynet, of course, sends Terminators back in time, and this one came back a little bit too far. We don't know how that happened. It could be that the machines were not as infallible as they thought, and one small mistake caused this guy to go back too far, and now he's the T-Rex's lunch meat. Or it could be that the humans were a little more clever than Skynet thought, and they may have flipped a switch, and when the Skynet sent the Terminator back, went back too far. But it just kind of goes to show that one small action can change the world, so no one need ever feel helpless, because look at this. Terminator thinks it's a great predator, and it's found that there's always someone bigger. No matter how tough and able the Terminator thought it was, it's now realizing that there's another predator still better than it, and there's nothing that it can do about it. So a lot of symbology, a lot of hidden messages in this one, and definitely something that's good to stare at and contemplate for a little while. So why don't you contemplate the nuances of this painting for a few moments, and then we'll move on to the final piece in the featured exhibit, okay? Is it for sale? No. None of the pieces in the exhibit are for sale. Currently, we're just having them on display. However, if you'd like, I can give you a flyer with all the artists listed, and you can get on the artist's mailing list. Quite often we do have artists that decide to sell pieces later on, and if you're on their mailing list, you will be notified when they decide to do that. So when we get back to the main desk, I can just give you that flyer, and you'll be able to jump on their mailing lists and visit their websites and see what else is available. And I'm sure you can probably contact the artist directly as well, but at the moment, none of the pieces in the Focus exhibit are for sale. However, we have many other pieces throughout the entire gallery, and quite a few of them are for sale. So if you find one of those you like at some point, let me know, and we can wrap it up and send it home with you. But for now, the pieces in our Focus exhibit are not for sale at the moment. So, well, if you've enjoyed this one for a little while, let's head on to the next one. So, last but certainly not least, this one is kind of a dark scenario, but this is known as the Lost Snowman, and obviously the snowman is not lost in the physical sense, because, there it is in its snowy little environment, but rather it's lost in a mental sense. It has lost itself as it descends into the dark side. You can see that Frosty here has become a Sith. He has embraced the dark side, and he's descending down into that spiral of darkness. And being a snowman, the laser sword does, of course, melt him every time he turns it on. So he is literally destroying himself every time he performs the actions of a Sith. And, of course, that's very symbolic of the way Sith destroy themselves. You know, they destroy a little piece of their soul with every being that they kill. And Frosty is destroying a little piece of himself every time he pulls that Sith lightsaber. So every time he turns on the saber, he just dies a little bit more. And so it's a very, very dark, very introspective piece. And, of course, as we know, Luke was able to save his father and bring him back to the light side, so there is still hope for Frosty, and we don't know what happens in the future. But for now, this is just a snapshot into his life at a very dark time of his life. And again, it's symbolic of the choices that we all face and how, you know, the darkness can destroy you if you let it. But, of course, you don't have to, which is why there are signs of hope in the distance. You know, it's light in the distance, and if Frosty can head toward the light and leave behind the Sith darkness, he will continue to remain a snowman for his entire life. If he does not, he will continue to melt as the darkness destroys more and more of him each time he pulls the saber. And he will be no more. The darkness will literally consume him. So, again, a very, very thought-provoking piece, and I have heard that the artist is working on a second painting in this series, which will be called Frosty's Salvation. So it sounds like Frosty does find his way back to the light. But for now, this is the portrait of his time in the dark side. So go ahead and gaze upon that for a little bit. And I'm just going to head back to the front desk. You can go ahead and check out any of the paintings in the gallery. And if you find one that you would like to take home with you, feel free to let me know, and we can definitely wrap that up for you. How late are we open? We are open until 9 p.m., so you have plenty of time to explore the entire gallery. We have 2 floors of art here, so lots and lots to see. Again, largest collection in the world of art that you've never heard of. And when you're on your way out, or at some point when you're strolling through the halls here, just stop back at the front desk, and I will be happy to give you the aforementioned flyer with all of the artist's contact information on it, okay? Okay, well, do enjoy. It is an utter feast for the eyes, and I will see you in a bit.